What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here and welcome to a new album review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the latest album from the band The Ocean, or known now as the Ocean Collective, entitled Holocene. Now this is the band's latest album to be released and it is their 9th overall across their discography, and this is the first album in 3 years since the release of the critically acclaimed record of the second out of the two Phanerozoic concept albums. The second album of the Phanerozoic concept was released back in 2020, making that album to be the last released through Metal Blade Records, and this album is released through Pelagic Records. The Ocean has been one of my favorite progressive sludge metal style bands, and this is a band from Germany. I at first did discover The Ocean when I was reviewing this album for the first time back over a decade, this 2013 masterpiece called Pelagial, and this album has been later on one of my most favorite releases from the past 10 years. So when I had reviewed the two previous records of the Phanerozoic 1 and 2 albums, The Ocean's discography has been incredibly descriptive, historic moments, and this is another concept dealing into the various topics, and Holocene is basically all about the Holocene epoch, and it is the current and shortest chapter in the history of the Earth. There is a lot of the lyrical inspirations about the rise of conspiracy theories to critical thinking, and as well as the values of the modern age being so deconstructive and full of the alienation and the angst. What I really appreciate so much about The Ocean in particular is none other than the phenomenal craft of musicianship, and as well as the engaging, heavy, thrilling, yet exciting moments onto the band's own progressive natures. This album is also one record which is another different identity of itself, because while most of this record is highly a very big surprising difference, when you can think about this after listening back to the previous records, this band this time have decided to focus less into the brutality, but to still deliver a lot more of the fruition of their creative ideas that this album had to offer. The biggest surprise about this record is it did not start into something as technical or as insane, into a lot of chaos and the violent historic nature throughout the lyrics, to the distorting vocals, to beautiful melodic clean vocals, bringing in some suspense and as melancholic elements as possible. This album is a contrast into a lot of the featuring appearance musically onto some more electronic, soundscapey elements. But with that being said, after listening to this album and to fully respect and understand what this album had to offer, unfortunately, the weakest thing about the album is that it was sometimes a bit of a difficult time to really digest things and to fully be engaged into what was going on. But besides that, this was always a band with so much adrenaline to passion and to continue their forever growing ethic on being such a productive, inspiring band, and as well as for the band themselves to have art that is always this big giant experiment that they are always happy with. There are some moments onto the album which, on the electronic elements, like onto the tracks like of Boreal and Sea of Reeds, to Atlantic, that they do sound as gentle and as growing into the minimalism side, especially from the way it was produced. And hearing some more of the later instruments, trombones to trumpets and the horns to some featuring guest vocals, involving some synthesizers throughout the ongoing process of the record. And when it goes into the heavier moments, like onto my personal favorite on the album, the last track being Subatlantic, the Ocean can still deliver whatever they want to make in another sense of personality throughout the whole experience on why these albums from their discography, to me, that has been so unique and as a successful listening direction. But I will say this, while I do understand the whole worthwhile effort that has been put into this record, especially into the delivery of the lyrical content, as they are masterminds to come up with a lot of lyrics like these, just like with various other bands that are as progressive, like Gojira, for example, obviously dealing into some of the global and environmental issues, and the Ocean can do no wrong of painting a separate vision and as an artistic expression into this whole landscape. I don't think the songwriting is really one of the best moments, because while I was really trying my best actually to fulfill this new experiment, I just don't see this as one of my personal favorite releases from the band entirely. And that is, at some points, a bit of a disappointment, because while the Ocean's earlier albums, especially like the aforementioned Pelagial to the earlier records, they were as terrific and balanced perfectly into this whole gigantic climax and the crescendo of themselves as musicians. The vocals especially are outstanding. The intensifying yet engaging melodies and heavy guitars to wonderful bliss into the drumming skills. The rest of the band, who have been just as outstanding to work with each other, there's so much of the appreciation that I can say for the Ocean. But as an album, this one, while it is to me, in my opinion, as a good direction they've decided to take, being so unapologetic and as open-minded, does fall into a little bit of this lackluster consistency, because the tracks to this one can be sometimes as not memorable and more forgettable. But with that being said, the band themselves have made something as heavily considering and as naturally productive. This album of Holocene is still as progressive and as direction driven and varied, an above average record with so much of details and characteristics. But the album has not been one of my favorite releases of the year, as some people say that it is. The production done by Daniel is really, really good. As I said about the minimalism of the synthesizers, they were really nice and quite meditative in places, and as well as this fat and big tonality through the instrumentation and the tracked performances on the vocals, the Ocean still have done themselves proud to continue forward as a band. They can really proceed any listener with their own art. That's personally all I would like to say about Holocene by the Ocean, and I know that I didn't go very descriptive into each track, but I was focusing more or less into the whole worthwhile work of the music and why they wanted to make an album like this. Let me know what you think of this record in the comments down below. Do you love this record? Do you like this record? And is this one of your favourite releases of the year so far? Or you may think otherwise. I'm going to give Holocene by The Ocean a respectable 7.5 out of 10. Besides the flaws, there were some of the positives which I wanted to say in this review, and The Ocean are still as capable for sticking together and to be as amazing musicians. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.